Hi, this is Susan. We're here and I'm going to show you how to make an apple. Now, I know you've made an apple before if you've done any kind of polymer clay food, but like if you look at this that I got at Michael's, they're round. Apples aren't round. And tomatoes are round. They look more like a tomato than an apple. So I started thinking about it and I was like, making apple. This is a Barbie size apple. And you might start with making a Barbie size apple so you can make a smaller apple for miniatures, because I realized after I knew it was making a 1/6 scale, but then it was easier to get it to a much smaller scale. And the way that, I judge things is by the hand nearly covers the face. It's a little smaller than a head, the face of the head of your head. But so if you put this into a doll's hand, it's hard to judge 1/6 because Barbie's hands are too small. Her hands and feet were made intentionally too small. So find a way that when you're away from a measuring ruler or whatever, that you have a way to judge what size things should be. And that's what I do. I just judge that if it sits in their hand and their hand is about as big as at least mine are, but what size is your hand compared to your head? So anyway, that's just a tip. Okay, so I've got some mixed clay here and here. And I have some bright red that I got, and I had some old darker red. These were the only colors. I had trouble finding red, I guess, because of the time of year. But this is a brighter red, and these are both variations of Sculpting and the polymer clay. And this was brown. It's, let's see, this is relatively new. And it's called Raw Sienna. So like a medium brown is your stem. And so I rolled out, this snake. And I just cooked this snake and cut it into segments. And some thinner than others. Because see, like with the 1/6, it's going to be thicker than the 1/12. Or smaller. So I like to mix the light and the dark. I just need to get more of the dark. I like to mix those together. And so I don't know if you can see just how much you can see the variation. There's just a slight variation. It's just enough to give it interest. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is cut some of this yellow. I like to put yellow. Let me move these out of the way. I like to put yellow into the apple. And I just do it this way. I just put it on two sides. I could even put a little bit more because this is a bigger one. And you don't want strands that you can just see. You want to keep your yellow on the outside. Don't completely cover your yellow. You're not blending your yellow. You get it to this point where it's smeared in. And then you stop. So, because I was talking and not paying attention, I've lost my yellow. Okay, great. Well, see there, it's kind of smeary. You need to stop at the smeary point where you just have a smear of yellow, because apples do have that. Now, see, this is more of a line. I didn't smear it out as much. But that's okay, because there is variation in color. There's lights and darks, and there's yellows. And you can take chalk and you take yellow chalk and go ahead and do that. Now, at this point, I'm just going to try to round it. Well, kind of, I'm trying to get the lines out of it, the folds. Okay, so let's see where my tool is. And I'm making 2 points because I'm going to go in and kind of push around. Now on the bottom it goes 4 sides, and the bottom's going to get pretty squished, but you know how it has the 4 points? An apple has 4 points. If you'll just keep in mind, do 4 kind of rolling sides, and then the top, you're going to have the same thing where you try to come in, I do 4 or so, and then you could do 4 or 5, and then just try to roll it in to the center. And I know if you do enough of these, you could get really quick at doing it. And then I just go and kind of soften it and then poke down in so that you have a place for your stem. And there you have an apple. Now, if your apple starts to look like a pepper or a tomato, that's okay. Just keep, focusing on getting an apple. Okay, and the next thing is to cook it. And then after you cook it, put this glossy Mod Podge. Some people use the UV resin, but no matter what, you're going to have to brush it on. So I just skipped the cooking it step and just used the glossy Mod Podge. So, because cooking kind of takes the shininess out of clay, so you need to put the shiny back in. But see how it has some yellow when you look at it? It's got some yellow peeking through. And this way I can skip the step of chalking the yellow into it, because I've kind of just faintly put it into it. Anyway, you can try that. Okay, so let me get this out of the way so that we can work on the next step. And let me set this over here. Since I don't have very much red of that dark red, I don't want to lose it. Okay, so I've got to cook that. Okay, and the next thing I've got 2 things I want to show you. So if we go long, you just bear with me. Okay, you know how we made a smile to make these containers, these tubs that we were the icing down, the ice tub, and then the icing down the sodas tub. Okay, so this is a smile too. And the shape, this is 4.5 inches from the top peak to the top, and 3.5 the smaller from the point to point, and then this is 1.25. So this is kind of a frown. Okay, so you want that, and then pull out your popsicle sticks because we're going to use them. This is a jumbo. This is this is the next size to the jumbo. There is a size in between. Let's see if I can reach one. I get the jumbo. Well, I'm not seeing it. Okay, I get the jumbo at this one at Walmart, and I believe they have this size too. And then there's like the tongue depressor size. There is one in between, and then there's the popsicle. So the jumbo is you can make this out of cardboard. You don't have to make it out of here, but this was just a way to show you the size of it. So we need a top. That's going to be the top here. And we need a bottom. That's the size there for the bottom of this. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. Just glue it. I'm just going to pretend like I glued it. and pinch it. And it's like the container we've been making. And here's what we're going for. Now, this is going to be an apple crate. And the next thing is to cut the popsicle sticks. I've got this measured out at 1 5/8 by 11 of these. It's a little tedious to do this, but it's going to turn out so cute. You're going to want to do it. Okay, so I'm using this cutting thing, and I just basically, just butted them up and then just kept cutting. And make sure you keep these little pieces because these look so cute on an awning. If you cut them small and use them, I've been keeping them to do an awning for a store. Okay, so now that we have this 1 5/8 inch, I'm going to take the knife. You want to be careful. I didn't have any problem, but I didn't do it on this ceramic tile. And you go down, and this is a different knife. See these little pieces here? When they curl, if you get curls, like this little curl here, keep those curls, and let me show you why. Keep anything that curls. Now sometimes you'll just get a straight cut as you're shaving it down, and I'll show you what you're trying to go to. You're trying to go to this. Because of the angle of this, you need an angle on the popsicle sticks. But keep those little curls as they come off. Now, if it's a straight piece, then don't bother. But the reason is when you make a box, that's Celsia. And, I mean, it looks like it. And so that way you can make like a little box out of your popsicle stick that you have here for a bottle. This is out of my doctor's office. And so he, like anything you order, used to come in a box with Celsia. They didn't have all the packing materials they have today. So, anyway, keep that. Keep that to put as packing material. Okay, so I'm not gonna cut myself in front of you. I'm gonna just go ahead and go with these. Now, the next thing I did was take really, really watered down brown, a light brown, medium brown, whatever you have, but really, really just a dot, and then water it down, and then I wet these so they would look used, because I would think they'd use crates over and over again. I wouldn't think they'd have brand new crates, every time. And so then the next thing is to paint, get your red out, your apple color red, and paint the top. And you see I have, let's go over this. So here's this bottom, and here's this top that I've painted. Now it can be cardboard. Again, it doesn't have to be wood. You can do a couple of layers of cardboard just the same way this is cardboard. I just want you to be able to see what size you're cutting it. So I'm going to start at the seam, and I'm just going to put a couple on here and then show you what's going on. So make sure you can paint this if you feel like it would show through, but because I'm using the brown, I'm using an old cookie box that I've about used up from Sprouts, and it's kind of brown on both sides. So you want to go slow on this, but not too slow that your glue dries, because you may need to come and reposition these, because I say 11 of these, but I had to reposition them to get them, the right distance to fit in 11. So don't go too slow. Okay, so see how that's working? And then the next thing is going to be the bands. I cut a little strip of cardboard. This is just cardboard. Now, I had some red, and what did I do with it? Okay, so cut little strips out of any box you have. I got it the shiny side because I was practicing with the Sharpie markers, and I just used the red and the green, and I was practicing with them, and the shiny was better than the flat surface. So you have some shiny cereal box or container, any kind of thing, packaging, whatever you have. I had that somewhere. I don't know where I set it down. I have too many projects going on at the same time. So do 2 reds and 1 green. So it'll be red, green, red. So you've got it at the bottom, and then take your marker and curl it. Oh, that's what I did with it. Put it somewhere curled. So curl it with your marker, and that'll help it be ready to see it's already going curly. And then when you've got these all the way around, start gluing. That's the green goes in the middle though. So start with the red. Wherever I put the red. I don't know at this point. I'm just jumping between one project and another. Okay, then look. This is what you're going for. Isn't that adorable? It's so cute. I mean, I have to say, it is cute. And so you decide how many apples you want to put, at the top. I don't have these glued in, so I can't really tip it too much. But you decide. I mean, you don't want a whole barrel full, or basket full. Okay, so the next thing is to make the little handles. And they just kind of came up and went straight down. Okay, you got 2 things. We're using a small paper clip, but you have to make the curves to fit inside of one of these. And they're going to be a little offset because there's 11 instead of 12, or there's 11 instead of 10. If it works out that you have an even number, then it won't be as offset. This is slightly offset by 1. But that's okay. You don't notice it because you're just so busy looking at those adorable bands of color. The red, the green, the red, and the apples. The shiny, delicious, big red apples. So, there you go. It's so cute. And so this is part of my, the apples. The candy apples is what I'm making for the carnival booth. Now see this glue? I've just been messing with it, but it's already setting. So you do need to go pretty quick on putting these and then redoing them to get them just the right spacing. And so if you notice here, they're almost touching. They're just slightly apart. Now I have seen styrofoam in this. In the store-bought one, I think it was styrofoam, and it was kind of white underneath it, and it didn't make sense. It should be red. So if you want to put styrofoam or something else, but this worked out really good. This is, hollow in here. Okay, so this is another mini that goes with this. But you can't have apples without making candy apples. So we need some sticks for our candy apples. And we need some apples for our candy apples. So this is a toothpick, obviously, and a skewer. So either one, if you want light color, or you could even use those pops, those paper paper, Tootsie Roll, well, not Tootsie Rolls, the pop sticks. They're kind of big. You'd have to soak them in water and unroll them. My friend's he gives them to me every time he does, eats a bag full of these. So, if you put this in water, it'll start uncurling the outside, and then you can take the paper off, and you can get it down to the size you want. Okay, so the first ones I made were these, and you can see they were round. Well, they're not meant to. I realized apples shouldn't be round. These were just apples I made like 15 years ago or something, and you can see the yellow in them. See the yellow streaks? I was onto the yellow, but I wasn't onto the right size. Okay, so then I made these last night, and I did them in 3, 2, and 1 because I didn't know for sure how I want to lay them out. So when you're poking your apples, poke big enough holes. I went ahead and used the biggest ones, but poke big enough holes so that you can put your skewer in however many of them you want to make the candy apple. And this is a frame. Let me go ahead and take these off. This is just a frame that I got from Hobby Lobby. They have them on eBay, and usually it's called a cabochon frame, but it can be a pendant frame. And so this is supposed to be like a cookie tray. And so I did 3 and 2 and 1 so I can sell one and not have them attached to each other. So lay out your caramel that way. Okay, so let me tell you how to make the caramel. And let me see what I have that I can... Well, you can see what it is actually going to look like. And if you look at this, see the colors? This one's a little bit orangier than this one that turned out a little more brown. And so it's up to you what you think. This was just, I kept working on it and thinking, is it more orangey? And the chocolate's more brown, but it's kind of a little opaque, but not too opaque. Okay, so what I have here is, these are pigments. These are the pigments I put in my resin to put into the silicone molds. This one is coffee. I got these on Temu. I show them to you all the time. So I started with the coffee color. There is a brown, but I started with coffee because I remembered I used coffee. Then I wanted it to be opaque, so I put some white into it to raise up the color of the brown. Now the next thing to get it to color is either orange or red and yellow. And I say get your red and yellow out, even if you have your orange, because you may need to put more yellow. So you don't see the red going into it, but that's what makes it the caramely or the milk chocolatey. Has a lot of red in the brown. It has a lot of red in it. Brown. Y'all tell me this if you want me to teach you about color. I was a clothing and textiles major, my first degree, and so they taught us about color. And so, like I can tell you, if you are new to this and you really don't understand color, I'll be glad to do a video. You just need to tell me, like, what you want to see. And so, so you want to keep your brown and yellow out, and red and yellow. Red and yellow make orange. So pull out your orange and then pull these two out and then just play with it until you get a color that looks like the caramel that you know caramel to be. And so now I made this last night and it's still caramely. And I took the toothpick and I took it by drops on the toothpick. It was a little more liquidy because, it's the UV light has made it start to solidify. But I just took it on this and then just dropped little droplets down. I put them down this up here first and then let them drizzle down, and then use the UV light. This is, I use the UV. After I mixed it, I put here's what I mixed first, and it's this dark. But these are all the colors that I have got here, and so let me show you with it mixed up. Is it separated? Okay, so you can see there's that milk chocolatey kind of color. And I don't know if it could change overnight, because I did this last night. I don't know, it looks more milk chocolate now than the orangey color that it looked like, but it might be that putting in the UV resin made it a little more orangey. Under the light, it looked really strange. The yellow in the apple just popped out, and it looked really weird. But you need these pigments, to use in your resin. Now, the one thing I'll tell you, when you use pigments in this UV resin, well, all resin, I think, the additive, when I was reading about things that were causing things not to solidify completely, that's one of the things, is putting any additive. And see, this one's a little bit, it's very, I've had this for a year at least, I guess, I don't know, months. And it's still a little bit bendy. And it's not going to solidify. Even though it's UV resin, it's not going to get completely hard. And that's because you're putting in these pigments. But it is hard enough to the touch where, it's finished. And these, I had to leave them under the light for a really long time, like 20 minutes. And then I scraped them off the glass. I put this onto glass, and then I used the craft knife or this or something, but I scraped it up, and then I turned it over and held it with these tweezers. I held it under the light to get more of because I didn't want them touching, and I didn't want to smash it while it's still wet, because the underside was wet. And so I put it under the light, holding it. I didn't know if it was safe to hold it that close so I used the tweezers. But you might look for something that you can set it in advance. I had a resin mold when I made these, and I set them upside down in that resin mold, because this part was a little more solidified, but this part was still wet on the underside. And so if you look for something that you can set it in, then, now see the different colors? If you can see this has a more orange tone, like this. This cup has the more orange to it. And I think of caramel as having a little more orange than milk chocolate. So you just decide which. I think that this got a little more orangey than I anticipated. That maybe it's a little closer to milk chocolate, but you decide what looks right for you. And that's that simple. So that's it. You just got to, put it under the UV light and pull it off, and you have to scrape it off your glass, and do it thick enough so that there's enough to scrape off. And then I use some scissors to kind of go around and cut the edge, a little fringe that was on the edge after I cut it, and then hold it up underneath. See how this one didn't turn out. I mean, it looks kind of hard, yucky. And I did put a little bit more of my mix into the bottom of it to kind of fill it in. But I mean, it turned out fine on this side, so that's all that's important. But it is it's still soft, and it will be because you're putting in so much of this pigment. But it looks like a candy apple to me. So as long as it's cooked enough where, you know, I can touch it, which I can, and on the apple it's hard and it's not coming off on my hands or anything. So it's cooked to that degree, but they are still flexible. So just let you know that that's going to happen. And that's okay. So if you like this content, please hit the like button and definitely share and subscribe if you haven't. And I love to show y'all the things I'm making and how I make them. So please come back. Happy fall.